It's one of the most awe-inspiring scenes in the Lord of the Rings trilogy. The Beacons of Gondor being lit from mountaintop to mountaintop. But in the books, this act, calling for the aid of Rohan, plays out quite differently. And the history of this action traces back to a time before the kingdom of Rohan even existed. Today on Nerd of the Rings, we cover the history of the Red Arrow. By the late Third Age and the time of King Theoden, the people of Gondor and the people of Rohan would have aided one another many times. So long was this tradition that it predates the Horse Lords having their own kingdom. While the films used the Beacons of Gondor to great effect, in the books the beacons only cover the land of Gondor itself, with the last of these beacons being placed upon Amon Anwar, which lies at the border of Rohan. On March 9, 3019, Theoden receives a Gondorian rider named Hirgon, who presents to him a red arrow, a sign that Gondor is in danger and is requesting aid. This arrow, and Hirgon himself, were sent out by the steward Denethor, who was also responsible for the lighting of the beacons. For while he is certainly no fan of Aragorn returning as king, Denethor in the books remains a wise ruler, and we see him use the means available to him to defend his great city. But what of this red arrow and the messengers who carried it? And why did the Gondorians use this device to summon their allies? For the answers, we look to Tolkien's stories, the earliest days of Rohan, and Tolkien's own inspirations. Over 500 years before the days of Denethor and Theoden, Gondor is under the rule of steward Cirion, and the Rohirrim are instead known as the Eotheod. The horsemen have long lived in the upper vales of Anduin, though they are known to their friends in the south. In 2509 of the Third Age, Cirion learns that hosts of easterlings are mustering along the southern edge of Mirkwood, and these fierce enemies, known as the Balkoth, plan to invade Gondor. With an attack looming and knowing Gondor would need aid to repel this threat, Cirion in his desperation turns his thoughts to the Eotheod. He resolves to send out 6 volunteer riders to attempt the journey, which is sure to be perilous. Not only would they have to travel 950 miles, but the route is full of enemies. The riders would not only need to pass near the very location where the Balkoth are assembling, but at this time, Sauron is well entrenched within Dol Guldur, under the guise of the Necromancer. Cirion would send out his riders, though he had little hope it would avail him. For all he knew, the Eotheod could themselves be under attack, or perhaps the horsemen would feel no obligation to aid him, or perhaps even the message would not reach them to begin with. To better their chances, he sends the riders out in pairs, one day apart from one another. Of the 6 riders, we learn the name of just one, the sole Gondorian to succeed his mission, Borondir. He and his companion would leave Minas Tirith on March 10th, 2510, and after making great progress, they come near to Dol Guldur. There, the companion is slain by arrows in an ambush. Fortunately, the speed of Borondir's horse would save him for the time. Still, he is pursued north all the way to the Gladden Fields. Along the way, he is waylaid by evil men out of Mirkwood, causing him to often divert from his path. After going without food the final 2 days of his journey, Borondir finally comes to the Eotheod. We are told that he is so spent that he can hardly speak his message to Eorl. In total, Borondir had ridden for 15 days, arriving on March 25th and averaging an astonishing 63 miles per day. He delivers his message to Eorl, Lord of the Eotheod, along with a small stone, upon which is etched the seal of the stewards of Gondor. Eorl resolves to aid Gondor, saying that if Minas Tirith were to fall, where shall they flee from the darkness? Rather than remain behind after his long and arduous journey, Borondir would set out with the Eotheod, riding at Eorl's right hand to serve as a guide. And it is he that would recognize the white mist flowing from Lothlorien to be an aid, not a hindrance, sent forth by the Lady Galadriel. Borondir would then ride into battle with the horsemen, turning the tide of the deciding conflict between Gondor and the Balcoth. We are told that as they came to save Cirion, it was Borondir who was first to cross the river. And there, in the battle of the field of Celebrant, Borondir would die defending the steward. Borondir would be held in great honor. We are told that in the lands of Middle-earth, he would be remembered in the song Rohan Methestel, Rider of Last Hope. And he would be laid to rest in the hallows of Minas Tirith, that sacred place where the kings and stewards of Gondor would be entombed. He is laid to rest a soldier of Gondor, and yet this brave soul, whose great journey to the Horse Lords would be forever remembered, was himself descended from those very horsemen. Borondir's actions would not only lead to his name being remembered and saving the realm of Gondor, but it would directly lead to the creation of the realm of Rohan. Eorl is made its first king, and the two realms pledge their unending friendship to one another. And it is this promise that is called upon all those centuries later, when a red arrow comes to Theoden. The arrow has black feathers, and its barbs are made of steel, but the tip is painted red, giving it its name. Theoden, of course, is well aware of all the history between these two kingdoms, and what this call for aid means, and the similarity between the situation he now finds himself in and that of Eorl so long ago. And like that great lord of the Eotheod, Theoden would answer the call. The messenger Hirgon spends the night in Rohan, witnessing the muster of the Rohirrim on March 10th, 509 years to the day that Borondir had set out from Gondor. Hirgon and his companion would then depart for Minas Tirith, in an effort to bring word to Denethor that help was on the way. However, as the Rohirrim pass the Grey Wood and approach the Ramas Ekor, they make a grisly discovery. 2 Gondorian messengers, dead. One rider, his head hewn off, still clutches the red arrow in his hand. Thus, like Cirion, Denethor would have no idea that help was indeed on the way. Yet, like Eorl, Theoden would come, and the coming of his riders would prove pivotal in the salvation of Minas Tirith. But why a red arrow? What led to this being the symbol of Gondor calling for aid? While some fans have guessed that this is some reference to Borondir, and perhaps his companions falling to the arrows near Dol Guldur, which would make for a fine in-world explanation, the true answer is that Tolkien was indirectly inspired by Germanic tradition. According to the incredible Tolkien scholars Hammond and Scull, Tolkien owned and drew inspiration from the 1888 book, A Tale of the House of the Wolfings and All the Kindreds of the Mark. This book, which also happens to have inspired Tolkien's depiction of the Dead Marshes, in turn was inspired by a Germanic folk tradition, recorded in such works as History of the Danes in the 1100s. In that text, it says that, on all occasion of any sudden and urgent war, an arrow of wood, looking like iron, used to be passed on everywhere from man to man as a messenger. Whatever its Middle-earth origins, We see the Red Arrow and the tradition of the Rohirrim and their ancestors aiding the realm of Gondor as one of the finest examples of bravery and loyalty. From the rider of last hope Borondir to the doomed Hirgon, from Eorl the Young to the great Theoden in his last days of life, we see these two realms bound by men willing to sacrifice everything to save one another and defeat the darkness. As always, I want to say a huge thank you to all my Patreon and YouTube supporters who make this channel possible. CCDC Red Team, Evil Chameleon, Tom DeBombadil 19, Lissamy the Cinda, Rabbi Rob Thomas, Charles Leisure, Joe Tepper, The Mighty Mim, Andrew Carlisle, Swirled Traveler, Matthew Jeffrey, Viking Lord, Alvin Einbert, Jeremy Daniel Derby, Madame Director, Freya Firestar, Chris and Meg Q, Leo Vittori, Sky Carcass, Slide Belts, Dane Ragnarsson, Berto Berg, Graham Derricott, The Dark-Haired One, Wyland, Kiara Berlin, Z and N, Evely, Kia, Micah Wu, and Debbie. If you enjoyed the artwork in this video, check out the artists in the description to purchase prints of their great work for yourself. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time on Nerd of the Rings.